Hey gang, Eric Schoenfeld here. It's good to see you on this Monday. Kind of excited about today's session, even though it's probably something that's not the most sexy topic. We're going to talk about 7 email tips for publishers. This is just some things that I've noticed in my working with a lot of different publishers. There's some fundamental things about email that a lot of publishers aren't really aware of or could use to greatly improve their overall email program. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about 7 email tips for publishers. Again, a couple housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded, and you can find all previous sessions at highvaluepublishing.com. Any links we talk about during this session, we will post with this particular recording when it's posted to highvaluepublishing.com. And this is available as a podcast. So if you can't attend live, feel free to go out, sign up at Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever. And if you have any questions here during today's session, post it live in the chat, or go and post your question at highvaluepublishing.com. We monitor both places constantly. And again, thank you one more time to our folks at What's New in Publishing for republishing these sessions to their audience. Hopefully everybody there is finding these really valuable. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some email tips for publishers. Again, this is nothing huge, just some things that I have discovered in working with lots of different publishers, some key tips. Number 1, monitor your email reputation. Your email reputation is just as important, frankly, to a publisher as your search engine optimization and getting web traffic in. I can't tell you how many publishers, when I work with them, their email reputation isn't good for a variety of reasons in there. And so that's one of the things that I highly recommend. There's some easy and inexpensive ways, sometimes free ways, to actually monitor email reputation. First thing I recommend, Google Postmaster Tools. Not a lot of people know about Google Postmaster Tools, but just like Google used to have Webmaster Tools, now called Google Search Console, there's Postmaster Tools. It's just at gmail.com/postmaster, and you can get started out there. I won't go too deep into it, but here's an example of what Google Postmaster Tools looks like. This is going to show you what your reputation from your particular domain, your brand, looks like to Google recipients, whether it's Gmail recipients or whether it's the Google Workplace recipients who have their own personal company branded version of Gmail. So there's tons of different options in here. You can look at your overall spam rate, spam reports, your IP reputation, your domain reputation. Again, when you're sending email, it's really 2 levels of reputation. The reputation of the IP address from the email service and the reputation of your domain that you're sending from. It'll tell you all different kinds of information here, but I strongly recommend you sign up for this. It's completely free. There's just a little meta tag that you've got to do, or a DNS entry you've got to do to validate that you have access and can look at the data for this. But this is Google sharing with you how it sees your domain reputation. You want to take it a step further. There's another great tool out there called Send Forensics. I strongly recommend. There are other tools out there as well, but this is a great one. And here we're monitoring the domain and the IP service here, and just seeing, what's the overall reputation of both the domain and the IP. We're monitoring for blacklists. I want to give you a little note on some blacklists, little side thing on some blacklists. You'll notice that there's a couple of blacklists that this particular domain's on. There's only a handful of blacklists that really are important. There's tons of email blacklists out there, and some of them are really easy to get on, but there's only a small handful of them that are really have any major significance to most email senders, especially here in the United States. So don't let it freak you out if you're on a couple of blacklists out here. It's really not a huge deal. But you can tell this tool also brings in information from Google, information from Microsoft. We're tracking complaint rates, bounce rates, unsubscribe rates, your Google reputation, your Microsoft reputation. If you're using our KPI dashboard that we create for publications, this is included as part of that monitoring service that's in there. So just a little heads up. If not, go out to Send Forensics and you can set up an account there yourself. little complicated to get set up, but once it's there, it's a valuable tool to check. I also get alerts every time a certain deliverability falls below a certain rate. That's a whole separate discussion we won't get into, but at a minimum, monitor with Google Postmaster tools. If you want to get more sophisticated, monitoring your reputation, your blacklist standings, other things like that, you can use a tool like MX Toolbox or Send Forensics, or there's others out there as well. So that's a little key on email reputation. Second thing is I want you to check everything for mobile. Now, this seems to be a no-brainer for most companies. However, I still see so many emails from publishers that are not designed to be mobile friendly. Oftentimes, there's an image that has a specific width, or we're sending out emails on behalf of advertisers where they give us an HTML that has a fixed width. There's another thing that could happen. You may have an ad. Maybe you're serving up ads into your email through your ad system. If you're using Google Ad Manager, it technically doesn't support that, although you can trick it. If you're using something like AdvertServe or Broad Street Ads, you can serve ads into your newsletters using code. However, I want to show you this one here. Now, these guys are making a change. Much to their credit, they're making a change on here. They serve in a 728 by 90 ad at the top. Okay. Good in theory, and this will work great on desktop devices, whether it's Gmail, whether it's the Microsoft Outlook client, whether it's the Outlook 365 or the web version of Outlook. It'll look great on desktop. However, the problem comes when it's on mobile. Now, a couple things. If this was just an image that was placed into a template, let's say in HubSpot or in ActiveCampaign or even MailChimp or whatever, if it was just a native image placed in there, when it goes to mobile, a couple things will happen. First of all, this image will shrink down to literally less than half its width, right? This is 728. It'll probably go down to 320 pixels wide. So it'll be virtually illegible at that size. However, if you're serving it in using a third-party ad system like BroadStreet or AdvertServe, this is what can happen. This is screenshots from my iPhone. What's happening now, this is from Gmail, this is from Apple Mail. What's happening, or actually this is from Apple Mail, this is from Gmail. What's happening is the email, the entire email is being shrunk so it can fit the full width of the image in there. It makes it a virtually unreadable experience on a mobile device when this happens. So I strongly recommend that if you're going to use ads in an email newsletter, stick with something like the 300 by 250 ads. The 300 by 250s are the best size, in my opinion, for email, because they'll fit well on desktop. You can do them like side by side. They'll also fit really, really well on mobile devices because this is about 320 pixels wide. For the most case, different devices vary a little bit, but the 300 by 250 ad fits really well there. So this is shrinking it down, making it really, really, really hard to read on a mobile device. Now this is blown up on my screen, but when it's on my mobile device, it's almost illegible. So one of the key things you want to do is make sure you're looking at your emails on mobile devices constantly. Even in B2B markets, I'm seeing at least 50% up to 60, 70% of emails are being read on mobile devices, most being read in the Gmail client or in the Apple Mail client. Other clients are very, very small on that. One little thing here, there was an intentional decision earlier on. We intentionally decided to stick with the 728 by 90 because it looked great on desktop. And then on the Gmail app, all right, it didn't look like that great, but on Apple Mail, we could dynamically swap out a 728 by 90 for a 300 by 250, right? It could dynamically swap out. It would let the ad server know, oh, this is a mobile device, serve up a 300 by 250 ad. Well, Gmail never did that. Gmail always said, hey, render this email as if it's a desktop device. So it always served a 728 by 90 ad. But on Apple Mail, it used to let the ad server know this is a desktop device, this is a mobile device, and it could swap out a different size ad on mobile devices. However, since October of last year, the launch of iOS 15 for the old Apple iPhone, that's no longer the case. This email privacy policy came into play with iOS 15. So that now, we'll talk a little bit about this later on, all emails, they don't tell you anything about it anymore. So now Apple's acting just like Gmail, and it renders everything as if it was a desktop device. So make sure you're looking everything up mobile. If you're using an ad server to serve ads into your newsletters, make sure you're using ad sizes that work on both desktop and on mobile. Okay. Tip number 3, consider an exclusive sponsorship. So I work with a lot of publishers and trying to figure out different ways to monetize their inventory, whether it's their website or their email inventory, their owned media inventory. Sometimes we'll do things where we include inventory in the email newsletter along with the website. And it just becomes like an extension, more page views. So there's an overall sponsorship package maybe. That wouldn't apply to this. But sometimes some publishers in some situations can make more money by selling every single newsletter that they send as an exclusive sponsorship. So I'm going to share with you here what this kind of looks like. And what this looks like here. Here we go. Oh, here we go. New England Hockey Journal does a great job with this. Actually, Siemens Media has a bunch of different publications covering regional sports. These guys do a fantastic job. I'm going to show you what we kind of designed for them. So look at this. This is the ad. This is a single ad in the entire newsletter. It's a 640 by 480 ad in the email newsletter, and it looks fantastic. It's just huge. So you got great content, big ad, more content, subscription information, right? So this is a really nice looking newsletter. Now, they're not tracking this using an ad system, because if we were using an ad system, the 640 by 480 would also appear on mobile, but they are just embedding it. In this case, they use ActiveCampaign. They're embedding it just directly in as an image within ActiveCampaign. So they're getting their stats out of ActiveCampaign as well, rather than an ad server. But let me show you what this looks like on a mobile device, right? So if I were to flip this over to be a mobile view of this, nice. It reflows really nicely, looks really good, just everything you do to expect with an email ad, with a responsive email. But look at this. The ad drops down. Instead of a 640 by 480, it's now a 320 by 240 ad. It's the same creative, it just automatically shrinks because we're directly placing it into the email rather than serving up through an ad. So this is one advantage to not using an ad server, and that can dynamically shrink it down. And one of the keys, they always tell their advertisers, hey, make sure your ad copy is readable if this shrinks down to 320 by 240. So 640 by 480 looks amazing on desktop, looks amazing, and does well on mobile. So they're selling one ad into an email newsletter, and they're getting premium dollar for it because of the exclusive share of voice that you get. So this is one thing I wanted to point out here in terms of considering exclusive sponsorship. I wanted to go back one little thing here to the to your email reputation. Let's talk a little bit about email reputation. Just one more second here. I missed a couple of things I wanted to chat with you about. When you're checking your email reputation, there's some authentication that goes on behind the scenes. Now, most of the time, this is taken care of, but what you're looking at here are two authentication protocols. One's called DKIM, DKIM. One's called SPF. I won't go into details, all of them, but there's a little hack. If you want to see what your emails look like, so let me go to this. I subscribe to hundreds of email newsletters. I'm going to go to this newsletter for T Nation here in Gmail, and I'm going to right click on that email, and I'm going to do, where am I here? I'm actually going to open that email, and I'm going to go here to the three dots in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to go to Show Original. Now what this does is this brings up the actual code underneath, if you would, of the email. And it shows you the actual original email here. And you'll notice this says exactly what the message ID was, subject line, but here, SPF. SPF, so you passed SPF authentication against this IP. DKIM, domain key, so you passed that with this domain. And then there's what's called DMARC, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But SPF and DKIM are the foundational identifications. They're kind of like basically the ID card, the universal ID card, or your driver's license for this message saying this is who this email is from. So you can always go into your own email, look it up, click the 3 dots over here in Gmail, and click Show Original, and it will show you this. There's also a great tool out there called MX Toolbox. I'll put the link to this in the comments section when we post this on the High Value Publishing website. But you could go, they have great different lookup tools you can do. So you could look up your own SPF record. And oftentimes when there's problems with email deliverability, we go check the SPF, we check the DKIM, we make sure that those records are set up properly. I can't tell you how oftentimes they are not set up properly. Or in this case here, this one here includes 5 other lookups, and you can reach a maximum and time out, and you can mess things up. So I can't tell you how many times this is done. And everything that sends email on your behalf needs to be listed in here. In this case, you can see these guys use Outlook. They're using ActiveCampaign. Cambium West is their fulfillment provider. Cvent sends email on their behalf. Mirabel Technologies, which is their they use for sales management. Every single one of these needs to be listed in here because every single one of these systems is sending out email on behalf of biztimes.com, for example. Same thing happens when we start talking about DKIM, the domain identifier. So we've published a domain identifier with DKIM in here as well. I know I'm getting a little geeky on this, and I apologize, but make sure that you've got somebody checking your authentication setup and your email reputation for your email sending. That's one of the biggest things I see most publishers mess up and can really screw their email deliverability. All right, we talked about modal, we talked about the exclusive sponsorship. Let's talk about integrating subscriber upsells and renewals into your email newsletters. And just a little tip out of here. I'm going to go back to the one that I saw here with New England Hockey Journal. And if you take a look, you'll notice this little, want to read our subscriber-only articles? Subscribe to New England Hockey Journal today. And when you click that, it actually goes through to their subscription page. There's some little secret sauce that we do here that I'm not gonna reveal too much because it's on how we're tracking all this, and we set up all little parameters to track things the right ways, and did attribution as to which sources are driving renewals. But the key thing is you got to know that whatever email system you're using can use dynamic content. So this is or conditional content. This only shows to people who are not active paid subscribers to New England Hockey Journal. So there's 2 things required to do this. Number 1, we have to have a connection within. These guys happen to use ActiveCampaign, and so they happen to use WooCommerce, WooMembership as their subscription system. So we've got to make sure that, hey, ActiveCampaign knows who's a subscriber, who's not. We've done this before with Cambium West. We've done it with Omeda. We've done it with other folks. So somehow or other, though, your email system has to be able to know who's a subscriber and who's not. So that connection has to be made, first of all. And then the second thing is you need your email sending capability needs to be able to dynamically show or hide content based upon what you know about your subscriber in your subscriber database. There are two systems out there I highly recommend that do the best on this. Three, I guess, really. Omeda can do this. HubSpot can do this, but probably my favorite of all these is ActiveCampaign. And if you're ever interested in that, let me know. I'll be glad to show you some things. But all three of those systems can do this. There are others out there as well, but those are probably the most popular amongst publishers. And then down here at the bottom, this whole block here. If you're not currently a paid subscriber, this whole block shows to you. If you are a paid subscriber, this block goes away, and instead there's a block encouraging you to follow them on social media. So that's all dynamically done. So these are the integrated subscriber upsells, renewals within your emails that I highly recommend. I want to show you one other one. This is obviously for a paid publication, but let me show you, this is loss prevention. This is a B2B trade journal that is controlled circulation. So we're doing things like this. These are three different conditional blocks here. You can actually see the condition there. And so only one of these shows, and sometimes none of these would show. But if you are currently an email subscriber, but you're not a controlled subscriber, we're going to, and by the way, they also only want United States and Canada. So we put some limits on that just because of the logistics of controlled circulation. So this only shows if you are not currently a controlled subscriber and you live in the state, in United States or in Canada. So we can set up those conditions on here, and we're trying to say, hey, you really ought to subscribe to the magazine. It's completely for free. Click here, boom, take them to the qual form. Obviously, with controlled circulation, we're not so worried. You really don't necessarily expire, but we're setting up something where within 18 months, after 18 months of the last time that you requested, we're going to tell you, hey, your subscription is about to expire. Click here to renew. And then after 24 months, we're going to send this to you. We're going to put, hey, your magazine subscription has expired. Click to restart. Again, it's controlled circulation, so it doesn't really expire. It doesn't really about to expire, but we're using those because they'd like to keep their subscriber database all to within a 2-year request file. So this is how it could work for controlled circulation publications, and this is how it can work for paid circulation publications. So integrating subscriber upsells and renewals in your email newsletters, really important. Okay, next little tip. Tip number 5, do sponsored emails the right way. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's take a look at an example sponsored email here. Here we go. Here's an example sponsored email. So this was sent out by a newspaper, actually. And when it came out, this is what it looked like. So a couple of issues here. Number one, when we set up a publication, I always like to break a publication. Let's say you have a daily newsletter. I always like to set up a publication actually with 3 lists. One is your daily newsletter list. 2 is your kind of internal announcements list for your, circulation promotions, events, webinars, contests, whatever it may be that you want to promote. And then 3, I like to do a partners email. So this is for your third-party emails. I like to set up all 3. This way, whenever we send out a partner email, we send it out like an ad like this. We send it out from the partners email list. That way, if someone unsubscribes, they're not unsubscribing from circulation promotions or from your newsletter. So I'd like to break those 3 up. That's kind of tip number 1. I guess tip number 5A. 5B here is always send it from your domain. So for example, let's use BizTimes again. By the way, this was not from BizTimes, but let's use BizTimes. If they're sending out an email, it should come from BizTimes partners, something like partners@biztimes.com, right? That's the email that it should come from. Never send the email using the name of your advertiser. Why? Now, 2 major reasons. 1, you're typically not authenticated with that domain, and so all of your domain authentication, the DKIMs and SPFs and all the lookups and stuff is not going to work well. Your email provider probably won't allow it either. And the third thing is, you're the one that has a relationship with your advertisers, with your readers. You're the one who's sending the email. It's coming from you. It's also something that has to do with canned spam, let alone Canadian Castle, California, European GDPR. You have to identify this as coming from you. The other main reason behind this is you want the reader to understand this, that this is a relationship. So let me show you an example here, right? When this got opened up, pardon me, they had huge number of spam complaints on this particular email because it looked like it was coming from the newspaper. People opened it up and they see colonial insulation and fireproofing. Whoa, what is this? This is spam. Someone's hijacked these guys' name. I'm reporting this. So huge spam complaints, which can damage your email reputation. It can also damage the email reputation of the system you're using to send it. ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, MailChimp, Omeda, whatever. And so they're not happy about that. Here's a better example, right? So this comes out from LBM Journal, right? This is LBM Journal Partner. And you can see at the top, they very clearly put a message from our LBM Journal Partner right there. Now, it's not huge, it's not in your face, but it's very clear. It's right at the top. I've seen other people who will put the, they'll put just their logo up there. They'll put their logo and the words, a message. That's fine. I think sometimes just the logo can be even a little confusing. So I like to just do something simple like this, a message from our LBM Journal Partner. So it's got to come from you. The from email address must be from you. And then when you open it up, it should identify that it's from you. You also want to then identify at the bottom all the canned spam implementation, all the address and the unsubscribes. You do not need that from the sponsor, but you do need it from you because you're the sender. It's your relationship with that. Okay, one other little thing I want to take in the sponsored email tactic. A lot of times when you get sponsored emails in, people will send you an HTML, right? It's like here, like go back to this one here. This was an HTML file that they sent. And it's usually really complicated. And if I were to look at this on mobile, I bet you it looks absolutely horrendous. Yeah, that's what it looks like on mobile. It's just images, right? And it doesn't look good, doesn't scale right. I have found very, very, very few advertisers and agencies know how to make good HTML emails that actually look good on mobile. So here's what I've done. I like to create a template. So this is a great template that I like to do here. This is who it's from. Here's your headline. Give me an image, right? Typically 16 by 9 or 4 by 3 aspect ratio. Give me some text. Bullets are fine. And then give me we're gonna do a button, give me a call to action and a URL to link to. That's it. This is the template for a sponsored email. Now, why? Because sponsors are like, oh no, I want to have this link and these 12 links and this image and this image. When you do those, I found that those emails don't get great responses. But this format gets great response. Plus, it looks great on desktop. Here's the desktop and mobile. I'm sorry, it looks great on mobile, right? And it just scales, it looks great. And we're not reading through a ton of content to get to the call to action. By the way, one other thought, when you have emails like this, whether it's promoting your own stuff or promoting a sponsor, one email, one call to action. One call to action. One email, one call to action. Okay, that's sponsored emails. Next thing I want to do is make sure you're taking into account the impacts of Apple iOS 15. This is having some big impacts that you may not even be aware of. I'm not going to go real deep into this because I published an entire article about this. I will put the link to this entire article about adapting to the iOS 15 email changes. I'll put that when we publish this to the website. However, key things I want to let you know, what was the big change? Apple launched this thing called Mail Privacy Protection on iOS 15. So the vast majority of readers have already now upgraded to iOS 15 on their Apple devices. And the vast majority of those mobile emails are read on Apple Mail. So bottom line, what is this going to change? You may have seen your open rates go up. Wow, what are we doing? All of a sudden our list is getting better and our content's getting better and people are just loving us. No, probably not. What's happening now is that email that is delivered to Apple Mail is actually Apple's recording all of those as being opens. So it's no longer telling you who's opened or not on Apple Mail. It's just basically saying everybody on Apple Mail has opened these emails. So your open rates are going to artificially go up with Apple iOS 15. So bottom line, a lot of things what this means is you've just got to adapt to this. You've got to adjust and come up with new baseline open rate expectations. It's probably gone up, but now you have to establish a new level. Make sure your team knows, your client knows. You may need to change your email engagement and cleansing processes. If you're looking at opens, you're going to have more opens, and so you're going to be doing less trimming on emails based upon opens, because every on Apple is going to look like it's opened. You may be able to say, okay, if you're on Apple, maybe we're going to start looking more at, is anybody actually clicking? Maybe we make a longer window with, is anybody clicking? So we got to look at that. You may have some automations that may rely upon opens to further automations or deliver leads to clients or whatever it may happen to be. You got to look at those because that's going to change. Design your emails to encourage clicks. Find a way to not put, you got to find a way to provide value within the email itself, but encouraging people to click back to your site. So this is really important. Ads served in the email from ad servers, your impression numbers could change on that. So just do a reality check with this, make sure you're understanding that and you're keeping up on what's going on. Again, I'll put the link to this in the notes. And finally, my 7th tip is consider DMARC and BIMI. Oh, great. More acronyms. We got DKIM, we got SPF, now we got DMARC and BIMI. All 4 of those, DMARC, SPF, DKIM, BIMI, they're all email authentication and identification ways to prove what you are. So I'm going to dive briefly into DMARC. DMARC means domain-based, message authentication, reporting, and conformance. Woof. Bottom line, this is just an extra layer of authentication that sits on top of DKIM and SPF. So you've got to make sure those are right first, and DMARC sits on top of that. What's it going to do? Well, it's going to let you know how many messages were received by whom, where those messages were sent from, and if they pass DKIM and SPF. Anybody who's sending out from your domain name. So I'm nearviewmedia.com. I can look and see how many emails are being sent out from nearviewmedia.com. Where are they coming from? And did those emails pass DKIM and SPF? I actually can see that reporting. Then I can also instruct email service providers what to do with emails that fail the DMARC test. I can either say, hey, don't take any action with them. We're monitoring only. I could say quarantine those emails, or I could say just outright reject them. So I typically recommend that for most publishers, start DMARC with monitoring only. Don't set any policy actions. Don't say just monitoring only, so no action, and learn who's sending email out utilizing your domain. This is important. This is, there's spammers out there who can send email out from your domain and ruin your email reputation out there. Once you've started with monitoring and you know what's sending out, you can then move to policy implementation. You can then say, okay, folks, quarantine these emails, or just outright reject them if they fail these tests. This is really important, though. You got to make sure that you whitelist all of your domain sending sources. You've got to make sure you've done that. So get me back here. If you remember way back here when I was talking about SPF, I'm going to bump this up a little bit in size. This is one domain, and they're saying, hey, Outlook is sending mail. MCSV.net, I forget what that is. Anyway, that I think that maybe Google, that's sending mail. Mirabel Technologies is sending mail. Active Campaign is sending mail. Cvent is sending mail. Cambium West is sending mail. Okay, so we got to make sure before we start telling email providers to start rejecting email, we've got to make sure that everything that is sending email, whether it's your website, your event system, your your fulfillment provider, your Salesforce automation system, your email newsletter provider, whatever you're using, whatever is sending email legitimately from you has been whitelisted within DMARC. Otherwise, if you start doing enforcement where they're going to reject those emails, which does improve your email authority and trustworthiness, but if you do that, it could start blocking legitimate emails that you need to go through, and you don't want that to happen. So make sure you whitelist all of those. I'm going to show you again using that Send Forensics. Again, if you're on my KPI dashboard and monitoring system, this is built in to that monitoring. But this is going to show you. This is just an example of the monitoring that you get with DMARC, right? Active Campaign, sending a lot of emails from Active Campaign. There's other systems that are out there that are legit. There's Amazon sending email. This happens to be, they use Amazon SES for their website emails. Microsoft is sending emails. They happen to use Outlook. But there's others. There's Google, GoDaddy, Oracle, Zoho, Amazon SEO, right? There's all these different things that are sending emails out here. And so we're monitoring these. We're checking them out. We're making sure what's legit, what's not. We can see, over the last 90 days, where was email sent from? What did the trend look like? Where were some of the biggest failures in the send? So some of these may actually be legit that we need to fix. Some of them may not be. In this case, most of these are legit, and these are some people trying to spoof sending mail from this particular domain. So that's DMARC. I won't get too deep into that. But then I will talk about BIMI. Oh, great. Another acronym. Brand Indicators for Message Identification, BIMI. Bottom line, what this means, hey, this is a way you can display your logo in the inbox and improve trust. So this is a great little screenshot from Litmus. Thanks, Litmus. You can see here Groupon. You can see the Groupon logo right there. Now you'll see that on the inbox, like in Gmail and here. You'll also see it when you open the email and you see like the avatar instead of the person. You'll see your actual brand in here. This does a ton to improve trust with people in the inbox that this is a legitimate email from you. And actually has been shown to increase open rates. So BIMI is currently supported by Google, Yahoo, AOL, Netscape. There's several others out there. I do want to let you know it is not currently supported by Microsoft. So Microsoft Outlook, Hotmail, any of those, Microsoft doesn't support it yet. We'll see. This is one of those extra layers that I think is going to get some good traction, but is still kind of early on. This is built on top of DKIM and SPF and DMARC. So think of it as a foundation, right? As a layer. You got DKIM and SPF or your authentication at the base. DMARC is built on top of that, and BIMI is built on top of that. So you've got to have DKIM and SPM set up right. You've then got to have DMARC set up right, and you have to have enforcement. You have to move to the enforcement policy where, hey, you're not just monitoring, you're going to reject or quarantine. Once you've done that, then you can add BIMI on top of that, and you can get your logo on your emails into people's inboxes. And I'll show you real quickly what happens with BIMI. Here's an example. Here's Aetna's BIMI record. So you can, again, MX Toolbox, great little tool. They've got a little BIMI lookup tool, and I could find out right here. Here's Aetna's logo. It's an SVG file, a scalable vector graphic that shows up in there. And they've identified that. They've got a record in there. So there you go. That's an example of what BIMI looks like. So that is pretty much it for the email tips for publishers. Hopefully you guys found this information useful. I realize it's kind of a bit of a smorgasbord, but I just wanted to share today some of the biggest things I'm seeing impacting emails for publishers, email deliverability, and even some email monetization. That's it for today's session, though. I hope you guys have a wonderful week.